City, Missouri.
Oh, cool.
So,
Awesome.
yeah. Well, it's great to meet you. Thanks for taking a minute out. And I would love to begin our conversation with 4 years ago, the pandemic. We were really wrapping our heads around it. And I'm wondering how you got through that time period and how it affected the way that you do business and live your life now.
Yeah, the pandemic was life's version of pushing me out of the nest. For me, at the time I was building my online business, but actually struggling mentally with putting myself fully out there and moving away from my brick and mortar business, which I was no longer passionate about, which was massage therapy. So I was holding on to some of my favorite clients, afraid to let them go and truly take the leap. And then the pandemic happened. I was no longer allowed to practice massage therapy, and I was forced to just go all in. So it was actually a true gift for me
Yeah.
because it gave me the space to learn everything I needed to learn to be able to launch my business. And now I teach a lot of those things that I learned, which is taking consistent action, overcoming the doubts, all those things.
So let's get into the heart and soul of what you do for a living right now with your business. If I put you in front of a bunch of third grade students at career day and one of the kids said, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you answer that child?
Yeah, I would say I help yoga teachers and other wellness business owners stop doubting themselves and stop doubting their dreams and helping them expand their businesses so they can get paid to do what they absolutely love.
So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
I wanted to be a pastry chef. I wanted
Oh,
to bake.
okay.
Yeah,
S- So, are you good at it? Is that something you pursued?
it is. I actually went to pastry school after high school and I still love it, but it was definitely not what I was meant for sure.
Okay. When I
Yeah.
was in high school, I was a runner and there was somebody that I ran with, and he told me at one point, we were just like, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And he says, "I want to be a world-renowned chef." And I had no idea that he even cooked. Right now, today, his name is Christopher Elbow. He's a chocolatier, and
Ah,
he's been profiled on Oprah. The Obamas bought chocolates from him. Other presidents have bought, so he is world renowned. He has a store here in Kansas City that's big. In San Francisco, he's got a storefront. So it's wild how things just happen. So
absolutely. That's so exciting.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So talk to me a little bit about where you were born and raised. How did you get into this business of coaching and therapy? How did this happen?
Yeah, well, for me, I had the dream of becoming a pastry chef, but ever since I was a kid, I was always curious about how and why we function the way we do. I was
Yeah.
always curious about why people are the way they are. And I also had a desire to live a life that had less stress in it and more joy. Like I was always on that path of seeking that, which led me to becoming a pastry chef because I love to bake, but then left me realizing that that wasn't the answer. I was even more stressed out and even more burnt out when I graduated. And it was always a path of me finding that within myself. And then eventually gaining these tools and seeing other people suffer with the things that I was suffering it with and started teaching them. And then after I started working with people from me helping others just feel better in the wellness world, then I started seeing the business owners struggle in the way that I struggled and wanted to hand those tools over. So now I help both, but it's always been a desire to heal and grow and find the gifts of life myself first.
So you've probably needed a lot of inspiration in your line of work. Who's been a hero for you? Who's been that inspiration?
I mean, the answer to this question is kind of backwards. For me, it was always kind of the opposite. For me, seeing suffering and seeing people suffer was what inspired me to find a solution to it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I saw the people in my life suffer, and that inspired me to try to help them. And then I felt that in myself. And then I became most inspired by those people. I have many, many mentors that I've worked with or at least read their books that inspired me that were doing that. So I would say my biggest inspiration is just people who like suffering itself and
Yeah.
stress.
We learn probably as just as much from the negative as we do the positive influences, things to
Yeah.
avoid, things to change. So let me ask you this. If you could meet one person alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating, who would that be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
I would love to meet and talk to Pema Chodron, who's a Buddhist monk, and she's written many amazing books. And she's does retreats and talks, and every time I hear her speak, it's just so I've never met her in person, but every time I've heard the recordings, it is so moving to me. I would love to sit down and just have a deep conversation and explore the world and ourselves and our humanity, and oh, that would be so wonderful.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What's your inspiration every day? You give a lot. I mean, that you're in the business of giving to your clients, but you also have to retain and grow yourself. How do
Mm.
you find that balance and what's that ultimate inspiration for you every day to get up and do that?
Mm. Yes, I love nature and I actually love running. I'm a trail runner. So for me, trail running is like that's where I fill up my cup in working on those personal goals. And there's a lot of metaphors for life there. I get a lot of inspiration in there, in that industry, in that world. But
Hmm.
for me, spending time in nature and challenging my body and connecting to myself, using my yoga and meditation practices as well when I'm out there on the trail, that's yeah, it's so nourishing to me.
So what's one of your favorite client success stories that you've had so far?
I worked with a student, actually, I'm still working with him. And when I first met him, I met him in it was a workshop training that I was assisting my teacher. And I met him and I could see the effect that this person had on the group. And he actually was coming into the group on Zoom when everybody else was in person. And yet he still had a positive effect on this group. After that training, he requested to work with me and we started working one on one. And I heard about his goals and they were amazing. And then immediately discovered that he did not see himself clearly. He had no clue the effect that he truly had. And in fact, he dealt with a lot of the doubts that, I personally have experienced of doubting his dreams, doubting if he could even have the impact that he wanted to have. And yet I could see that he totally could. Like he's already does. And through working together, he's now finally seeing the effect that he has on others and is taking action on those goals. He's executing his plan and just most of all seeing his own sense of confidence and belief in what he wants to accomplish, facing those difficulties that we face, those doubts that come up when we set goals, and moving through those is just so inspiring and truly, truly incredible. And it's affecting his whole life, his health, his relationships, and yeah, I'm so grateful to work with him.
Yeah, big domino effect. So let me ask you this. You have to give good advice to your clients. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Mm. I would say, I mean, I've gotten so many wonderful sources of inspiration, but I think the most profound piece of advice that I've had in the business sense is from my dad. When I first became a massage therapist, he was a car sales manager for many years, and he worked his way up in that industry. And I became a massage therapist, and he said, "Okay, now you need to go all in on sales." And I was like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "You can be the best massage therapist in the world, but if you don't know how to sell, nobody will come in to experience your massage. So you are a salesperson first and a massage therapist second."
Yeah,
And that has guided me this whole time. Especially I find in the wellness industry, there's a lot of aversion to selling. It goes across the board, but in the wellness industry, a lot of us come into it with this desire to help, and selling feels backwards. But
yeah.
that was a true, true source of advice that has guided me so much that sales is service. Sales is making it so that you can provide that service.
Yeah, that's pretty sage because I think about that even, I do visual arts and other creative things, and it's like there's a part of you that wants to focus on that. And even in healing, you want to focus on your craft, but you have to get people in. If you can't do that, then you're just not going to. That's pretty intuitive because you have to, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, of all of the things that you've done and become and evolved into in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I think for me, I'm the most proud of the fact that I can be proud. For the long time, I was such a perfectionist that I never saw my accomplishments. I never felt free or safe to be proud. I didn't see that there was anything to be proud of. I didn't see myself clearly. And the inner work that I've done has paved the path for me to be able to be proud of myself every day, to choose to be proud of myself every day. And then the ripple effect that that has had on my friends and my family, but then also now I have the ability to teach others how to do that and guide others to be able to be proud of themselves and see their own accomplishments. And when we can do that, we can create momentum and we can keep spreading the light in the world of our own, even just our own joy, giving back. So, yeah.
So let me ask you this, based on, the fact that when we get older, we gain all this wisdom. If you ran into your 18-year-old version of yourself in a dream tonight, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained throughout your life, what advice would you impart on your young version?
Mm. I would tell her to do everything she can to learn to have her own back, that having her own back will be the greatest gift that she could give to anybody in the world. That first and foremost, learn to have your own back. And when you do that, you will be able to be there for others, but you will be able to feel so much better that you deserve to have your own back. You deserve to stop being so hard on yourself.
Yeah. I think that's the number one thing when I talk to people in the therapeutic world is that the number one issue is that humans are just always beating our own selves up. It's
Mhm.
not necessarily the outside world. Ironically, it's us. And if we get to that point where we can say, all right, we're good enough, it's either not our fault or we're okay or we're doing the right thing, but it's so hard for our brains to, play with the id, ego, and superego and find that balance.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's in a nutshell what I do, that it's learning how to have your own back. And, when other people are criticizing us, if we are criticizing ourselves first, then we're going to believe it. But
Yeah.
if, someone criticizes us and we're not doing that, then we have a fighting chance to not let that in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, Rebecca, at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
well, I think I am a beacon of light. I mean, it sounds kind of woo-woo to say that, but ever since I was a kid, just my desire to look out and see the light in others, see joy and bring others' attention to that has been a guiding force in my life that's brought me to where I am now. And then now I'm able to do that on a much larger way through my business. But I seek to be that myself. But I really do. When I think about it, honestly, that would be that would be the truth. I'm always thinking about that. I'm always looking for the good, finding the joy, showing that to others, healing the suffering, all the stuff. So, yeah, I would say that
Excellent.
that's yeah.
So, if anybody out there is teetering on the line of wanting to reach out and wants to get help, wants to be coached, what would you tell them right now to make that call to reach out? What would be your advice to them?
Mm, yeah. Well, it can be scary to make that jump. It can feel like a jump. But when you do, when you step into that discomfort, there you don't even realize how much of the daily discomfort you're feeling right now will go away. And you can truly step into achieving goals that you never thought you could. You'll discover that you are capable of so much more than you currently believe. So, yeah. It's
So this so this is a logical baton toss here. How can people reach out? How can they get in touch? Learn more about what you're doing? Where's the best place to go?
Sure. Well, since listeners are listening to a podcast, probably the easiest place to go would listen to my podcast, Inner Critic Freedom. And otherwise, I'm on Instagram, Rebecca Doring Meditation, or my website has all the things, deeprootedbliss.com.
Excellent, Rebecca. Thank you so much for your story and for your light, for all the good that you're doing. I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely.